Happy Saturday. We are going to finish, hopefully, the Grimm's fairy tales today. My hair is up because it's hair wash day. We have no Ace today. We do have Toothless. He's hanging out. There's a little bit of a mess behind me, but that's fine. So let's get into it. We are starting with a story called Roland. There was once a woman who was a witch, and she had 2 daughters, one ugly and wicked, whom she loved the best because she was her very own daughter, and one was pretty and good, whom she hated because she was her stepdaughter. That's a pretty common theme in these books. One day, the stepdaughter put on a pretty apron, which the other daughter liked so much that she became envious and said to her mother that she must and should have the apron. Hello. Be content, my child, said the old woman. Thou shalt have it. Thy stepsister has long deserved death, and tonight, while she is asleep, I shall come and cut off her head. Take care to lie at the farther side of the bed and push her to the outside. And it would have been all over with the poor girl if she had not been standing in a corner near and heard it all. She did not dare to go outside the door the whole day long, and when bedtime came, the other one got into bed first, so as to lie on the furthest side. But when she had gone to sleep, the stepdaughter pushed her towards the outside and took the inside place next to the wall. In the night, the old woman came sneaking. In her right hand she held an axe, and with her left she felt for the one who was lying outside. And then she heaved up the axe with both hands and hewed the head off her only daughter. Hello, Toothless is back. I do like fantasy. Yes. When she had gone away, the other girl got up and went to her sweetheart, who was called Roland, and knocked at his door. When he came to her, she said, Listen, dear Roland, we must flee away in all haste. My stepmother meant to put me to death, but she has killed her only child instead. When the day breaks and she sees what she has done, we are lost. But I advise you, said Roland, to bring away her magic wand with you. Otherwise, we cannot escape her when she comes after to overtake us. So the maiden fetched the magic wand, and she took up the head of her stepsister and let drop 3 drops of blood on the ground. One by the bed, one in the kitchen, and one on the steps. Then she hastened back to her sweetheart. When the old witch got up in the morning, she called out to her daughter to give her the apron, but no daughter came. Then she cried out, Where art thou? Here, at the steps, sweeping, answered one of the drops of blood. The old woman went out, but saw nobody at the steps, and cried again, Where art thou? Here in the kitchen, warming myself, cried the second drop of blood. So she went into the kitchen and found no one. Then she cried again, Where art thou? Oh, here in bed, fast asleep, cried the third drop of blood. Then the mother went into the room and up to the bed, and there lay her only child, whose head she had cut off herself. The witch fell into a great fury, rushed to the window, and from it she could see far and wide, and she caught sight of her stepdaughter, hastening away with her dear Roland. It will be no good to you, cried she. If you ever get so far away, you cannot escape me. Then she put on her boots, which took her an hour's walk at every stride, and it was not long before she had overtaken them. I have a piece of hair floating. There we go. My goodness. Before she had overtaken them. But the maiden, when she saw the old woman striding up, changed, by means of the magic wand, her dear Roland into a lake, and herself into a duck swimming upon it. The witch stood on the bank and threw in crumbs of bread, and took great pains to decoy the duck towards her, but the duck would not be decoyed, and the old woman was obliged to go back in the evening, to go back in the evening, disappointed. Then the maiden and her dear Roland took again their natural shapes, and travelled on the whole night through until daybreak. Then the maiden changed herself into a beautiful flower, standing in the middle of a hedge of thorns, and her dear Roland into a fiddle player. It was not long before the witch came striding up, and she said to the musician, Dear musician, will you be so kind as to reach that pretty flower for me? Oh, yes, said he. I will strike up a tune to it. Then she crept quickly up to the hedge to break off the flower, for she knew well who it was. He began to play, and whether she liked it or not, she was obliged to dance, for there was magic in the tune. The faster he played, the higher she had to jump, and the thorns tore her clothes and scratched and wounded her, and he did not cease playing until she was spent and lay dead. So now they were saved, and Roland said, I will go to my father and prepare for the wedding. And I will stay here, said the maiden, and wait for you, so that no one else should know me. I will change myself into a red milestone. So went away Roland, and the maiden in the likeness of a stone waited in the field for her beloved. But when Roland went home, he fell into the snares of another maiden, who wrought so that he forgot his first love. And the poor girl waited a long time, but at last, seeing as he did not come, she was filled with despair, and changed herself into a flower, thinking, Perhaps someone in passing will put his foot upon me and crush me. But it happened that a shepherd, tending his flock, saw the flower, and as it was so beautiful, he gathered it, took it home with him, and put it in his chest. From that time, everything went wonderfully well in the shepherd's house. When he got up in the morning, all the work was already done. The room was swept, the tables and benches rubbed, fire kindled on the hearth, and water ready drawn. And when he came home in the middle of the day, the table was laid, and a good meal spread upon it. He could not understand how it was done, for he never saw anybody in his house, and it was too little for anybody to hide in. The good serving pleased him well, but in the end he became uneasy and went to a wise woman to take counsel of her. The wise woman said, "There is magic in it. Get up early some morning, and if you hear something moving in the room, be it what it may, throw a white cloth over it, and the charm will be broken." The shepherd did as she told him, and the next morning at daybreak he saw the chest open and the flower came out. Then he jumped up quickly and threw a white cloth over it. So the spell was broken, and a lovely maiden stood before him, and she told him that she had been the flower, and had until now cared for his household matters. She told him all that had happened to her, and she pleased him so much that he asked her to marry him, but she answered no, because she still remained true to her dear Roland, though he had forsaken her, but she promised not to leave the shepherd, but to go on taking care of his house. Now the time came when Roland's wedding was to be held, and there was an old custom in the country that all the girls should be present, and should sing in honor of the bride and bridegroom. The faithful maiden, when she knew this, was so sorrowful that she felt as if her heart would break, and she would not go until the others came and fetched her. And when her turn came to sing, she slipped behind so that she stood alone, and so began to sing. And as soon as her song reached Roland's ear, he sprang up and cried, "I know that voice! That is the right bride, and no other will I have." And everything that he had forgotten, and that had been swept out of his mind, came suddenly home to him in his heart. And the faithful maiden was married to her dear Roland. Her sorrow came to an end, and her joy began. I need lip chap, and I don't have anything with me. My lips are very dry. This one is called The Golden Bird. Oh, it's got a lovely illustration. I'll show you the illustration first. Look at that. Okay, The Golden Bird. In times gone by, there was a king who had at the back of his castle a beautiful pleasure garden, in which stood a tree that bore golden apples. As the apples ripened, they were counted, but one morning one was missing. Then the king was angry, and he ordered that watch should be kept about the tree every night. Now the king had 3 sons, and he sent the eldest to spend the whole night in the garden. So he watched till midnight, and then he could keep off sleep no longer. And in the morning another apple was missing. The second son had to watch the following night, but it fared no better, for when 12 o'clock had struck he went to sleep, and in the morning another apple was missing. Now came the turn of the third son to watch, and he was ready to do so, but the king had less trust in him, and believed he would acquit himself still worse than his brothers, but in the end he consented to let him try. So the young man lay down under the tree to watch, and was resolved that sleep should not be master. When it struck 12, something came rushing through the air, and he saw in the moonlight a bird flying towards him, whose feathers glittered like gold. The bird perched upon a tree, and had already pecked off an apple, but the young man let fly an arrow at it. I think there's a fly in the house, and I don't know if you could just hear Ace's little claws running around, but he's running after it. The bird flew away, but the arrow had struck its plumage, and one of its golden feathers fell to the ground. The young man picked it up, and taking it next morning to the king, told him what had happened in the night. The king called his council together, and all declared that such a feather was worth more than the whole kingdom. "Since the feather is so valuable," said the king, "one is not enough for me. I must and will have the whole bird." So the eldest son set off, and relying on his own cleverness, he thought he should soon find the golden bird. When he had gone some distance, he saw a fox sitting at the edge of a wood, and he pointed his gun at him. The fox cried out, "Do not shoot me, and I will give you good counsel. You are on your way to find the golden bird, and this evening you will come to a village in which 2 taverns stand facing each other. One will be brightly lighted up, and there will be plenty of merriment going on inside. Do not mind about that, but go into the other one, although it will look to you very uninviting." "How can a silly beast give anyone rational advice?" thought the king's son, and let fly at the fox, but missed him, and he stretched down his tail and ran quickly into the wood. Then the young man went on his way, and towards evening he came to the village, and there stood the 2 taverns, and one singing and dancing was going on, and the other looked quite dull and wretched. "I should be a fool," said he, "to go into that dismal place, while there is anything so good close by." So he went into the merry inn, and there lived in clover, quite forgetting the bird and his father and all good counsel. As time went on, and the eldest son never came home, the second son set out to seek the golden bird. He met with the fox just as the eldest did, and received good advice from him without attending to it. And when he came to the 2 taverns, his brother was standing and calling to him at the window of one of them, out of which came sounds of merriment. So he could not resist, but went in and revelled to his heart's content. And then, as time went on, the youngest son wished to go forth and to try his luck, but his father would not consent. "It would be useless," said he. "He is much less likely to find the bird than his brothers, and if any misfortune were to happen to him, he would not know how to help himself. His wits are none of the best." But at last, as there was no peace to be had, he let him go. By the side of the wood sat the fox, begged him to spare his life, and gave him good counsel. The young man was kind and said, "Be easy, little fox, I will do you no harm." "You shall not repent of it," answered the fox, "and that you may get there all the sooner, get up and sit on my tail." And no sooner had he done that than the fox began to run, and off they went over stock and stone, so that the wind whistled in their hair. When they reached the village, the young man got down, and, following the fox's advice, went into the mean-looking tavern without hesitating, and there he passed a quiet night. The next morning, when he went out into the field, the fox, who was sitting there already, said, "I will tell you further what you have to do. Go straight on until you come to a castle, before which a great band of soldiers lie. But do not trouble yourself about them, for they will all be asleep and snoring. Pass through them and forward into the castle, and go through all the rooms until you come to one where there is a golden bird hanging in a wooden cage. Near at hand will stand empty a golden cage of state, but you must beware of taking the bird out of his ugly cage and putting him into the fine one. If you do so, you will come to harm." After he had finished saying this, the fox stretched out his tail again, and the king's son sat him down upon it. And then away they went over stock and stone, so that the wind whistled through their hair. And when the king's son reached the castle, he found everything as the fox had said. And he at last entered the room where the golden bird was hanging in a wooden cage, while a golden one was standing by. 3 golden apples too were in the room. Then, thinking it foolish to let the beautiful bird stay in that mean and ugly cage, he opened the door of it. He took hold of it and put it into the golden one. In the same moment, the bird uttered a piercing cry. The soldiers awakened, rushed in, seized the king's son, and put him in prison. Should have listened. The next morning, he was brought before a judge, and as he confessed to everything, condemned to death. But the king said he would spare his life on one condition, that he should bring him the golden horse whose paces were swifter than the wind, and that then he should also receive the golden bird as a reward. So the king's son set off to find the golden horse, but he sighed and was very sad, for how should it be accomplished? And then he saw his old friend the fox sitting by the roadside. "Now you see," said the fox, "all this has happened because you would not listen to me. But be of good courage. I will bring you through and will tell you how you are to get the golden horse. You must go straight on until you come to a castle where the horse stands in a stable. Before the stable door the grooms will be living, but they will also be asleep and snoring, and then you can go and quietly lead out the horse. But one thing you must mind. Take care to put upon him the plain saddle of wood and leather, and not the golden one, which will hang close by. Otherwise it will go badly with you." Then the fox stretched out his tail, and the king's son seated himself upon it, and away they went over stock and stone until the wind whistled through their hair. And everything happened just as the fox had said, and he came to the stall where the golden horse was. And as he was about to put on him the plain saddle, he thought to himself, "Such a beautiful animal would be disgraced were I not to put on him the good saddle, which becomes him so well." However, no sooner did the horse feel the golden saddle touch him than he began to neigh, and the grooms all awoke, seized the king's son, and threw him into prison. The next morning he was delivered up to justice and condemned to death, but the king promised him his life, and also to bestow upon him the golden horse if he could convey thither the beautiful princess of the golden castle. With a heavy heart the king's son set out, but by great good luck he soon met with the faithful fox. "I ought now to leave you to your own ill luck," said the fox, "but I am sorry for you, and will once more help you in your need. Your way lies straight up to the golden castle. You will arrive there in the evening, and at night, when all is quiet, the beautiful princess goes to the bath. And as she is entering the bathing house, go up to her and give her a kiss. Then she will follow you, and you can lead her all away. But do not suffer her first to go and take leave of her parents, or it will go ill with you." Then the fox stretched out his tail, the king's son seated himself upon it, and away they went over stock and stone, so that the wind whistled through their hair. And when he came to the golden castle, all was as the fox had said. He waited until midnight, when all lay in a deep sleep, and then as the beautiful princess went to the bathing house, he went up to her and gave her a kiss. And she willingly promised to go with him, but she begged him earnestly and with tears that he would first let her go and take leave of her parents. At first he denied her prayer, but as she wept so much more and fell at his feet, he gave in at last. And no sooner had the princess reached her father's bedside than he, and all who were in the castle, waked up, and the young man was seized and thrown into prison. The next morning the king said to him, "Thy life is forfeit, but thou shalt find grace if thou canst level the mountain that lies before my windows, and over which I am not able to see. And if this is done within 8 days, thou shalt have my daughter for a reward." So the king's son set to work and dug and shoveled away without ceasing. But when, on the 7th day, he saw how little he had accomplished, and all that his work was as nothing, he fell into a great sadness and gave up all hope. But on the evening of the 7th day the fox appeared and said, "You do not deserve that I should help you, and now go and lie down to sleep, that I will do the work for you." The next morning when he awoke and looked out of the window, the mountain had disappeared. The young man hastened full of joy to the king, and told him that his behest was fulfilled, and whether the king liked it or not, he had to keep his word and let his daughter go. So they both went away together, and it was not long before the faithful fox came up to them. "Well, you have got the best first," said he, "but you must know the golden horse belongs to the princess of the golden castle." "But how shall I get it?" asked the young man. I'm going to tell you, answered the fox. First, go to the king who sent you to the golden castle and take to him the beautiful princess. There will then be very great rejoicing. He will willingly give you the golden horse, and they will lead him out to you. Then mount him without delay, and stretch out your hand to each of them to take leave, and last of all to the princess. And when you have her by the hand, swing her up on the horse behind you, and off you go. Nobody will be able to overtake you, for that horse goes swifter than the wind. And so it was all happily done, and the king's son carried off the beautiful princess on the golden horse. The fox did not stay behind, and he said to the young man, Now I will help you get to the golden bird. When you draw near the castle where the bird is, let the lady alight, and I will take her under my care. Then you must ride the golden horse into the castle yard, and there will be great rejoicing to see it, and they will bring out to you the golden bird. As soon as you have the cage in your hand, you must start off back to us, and then you shall carry the lady away. The plan was successfully carried out, and when the young man returned with the treasure, the fox said, Now, what will you give me for my reward? What would you like? Asked the young man. When we are passing through the wood, I desire that you should slay me and cut off my head and feet. That were a strange sign of gratitude, said the king's son, and I could not possibly do such a thing. Then the fox said, If you will not do it, I must leave you. But before I go, let me give you some good advice. Beware of two things. Buy no gallows meat and sit at no brookside. With that, the fox ran off into the wood. The young man thought to himself, That is a wonderful animal with most singular ideas. How should anyone buy gallows meat? And I am sure I have no particular fancy for sitting by a brookside. So he rode on with the beautiful princess and led So he rode off with the beautiful princess, and their way led them through the village where his two brothers had stayed. There they heard great outcry with noise, and when he asked what it was all about, they told him that two people were going to be hanged. And then he drew near, and when he drew near, he saw it was his two brothers, who had done all sort of evil tricks, and had wasted all their goods. He asked if there were no means of setting them free. Oh yes, if you will buy them off, answered the people. But why should you spend your money in redeeming such worthless men? But he persisted in doing so, and when they were let go, they all went on their journey together. The fox told him not to buy gallows meat. After a while, they came to the wood where the fox had met them first, and there it seemed so cool and sheltered from the sun's burning rays that the two brothers said, Let us here rest for a little while by the brook, and eat and drink to refresh ourselves. The young man consented, quite forgetting the fox's warning, and he seated himself by the brookside, suspecting no evil. But the two brothers thrust him backwards into the brook, seized the princess, the horse, and the bird, and went home to their father. Is not this the golden bird that we bring? Said they, and we also have the golden horse, and the princess of the golden castle. Then there was great rejoicing in the royal castle, but the horse did not feed, the bird did not chirp, and the princess sat still and wept. The youngest brother, however, had not perished. The brook was, by good fortune, dry, and he fell on soft moss without receiving any hurt, but he could not get up again. But in his need the faithful fox was not lacking. He came up running and reproached him for having forgotten his advice. But I cannot forsake you all the same, said he. I will help you back again into daylight. So he told the young man to grasp his tail and hold on to it fast, and he drew him up again. Still, you are not quite out of all danger, said the fox. Your brothers, not being certain of your death, have surrounded the wood with sentinels, who are to put you to death if you let yourself be seen. The poor beggar man was sitting by the path, and the young man changed clothes with him, and went clad in that wise into the king's courtyard. Nobody knew him, but the birds began to chirp, and the horse began to feed, and the beautiful princess ceased weeping. What does this mean? Said the king, astonished. The princess answered, I cannot tell, except that I was sad, and I am now joyful. It is to me as if my rightful bridegroom had returned. Then she told him all that had happened, although the two brothers had threatened to put her to death if she let out anything. The king then ordered every person who was in the castle to be brought before him, and with the rest came the young man, like a beggar in his wretched garments. But the princess knew him and greeted him well, falling on his neck and kissing him. The wicked brothers were seized and put to death, and the youngest brother was married to the princess and succeeded to the inheritance of his father. Ace is being a jerk. But what became of the poor fox? Long afterwards, the king's son was going through the wood, and the fox met with him and said, Ace, come on! Now you have everything that you can wish for, but my misfortunes never come to an end, and it lies in your power to free me from them. And once more he prayed the king's son earnestly to slay him and cut off his head and feet. So at last he consented, and no sooner was it done than the fox was changed into a man, and was no other than the brother of the beautiful princess. And thus he was set free from a spell that had bound him for a long, long time. And now, indeed, there lacked nothing to their happiness as long as they lived. The next one is called The Dog and the Sparrow. My lips are so dry. Dog and the Sparrow. There was once a sheepdog whose master behaved ill to him and did not give him enough to eat, and when for hunger he could bear it no longer, he left his service very sadly. In the street he was met by a sparrow, who said, "Dog, my brother, why are you so sad?" And the dog answered, "I am hungry and have nothing to eat." Then the sparrow said, "Dear brother, come with me into the town, I will give you plenty." Then they went together into the town, and soon they came to a butcher's stall, and the sparrow said to the dog, "Stay here while I reach you down a piece of meat." And he perched on a stall, looked round to see that no one noticed him, and pecked, pulled, and dragged, stole along a piece that lay near the edge of the board, that at last it slid to the ground. The dog picked it up, ran with it into a corner, and ate it up. Then said the sparrow, "Now come with me to another stall, and I will get you another piece, so that your hunger may be satisfied." When the dog had devoured a second piece, the sparrow asked, "Dog, my brother, are you satisfied now?" "Yes, as to meat I am," answered he, "but I have had no bread." Then said the sparrow, "That also you shall have. Come with me." And he led him to a baker's stall and pecked at a few little rolls until they all fell to the ground. And as the dog still wanted more, they went to another stall still further on and got more bread. When that was done, the sparrow said, "Dog, my brother, are you satisfied yet?" "Yes," answered he, "and now we will walk a little outside the town." And they went together along the high road. It was warm weather, and when they had gone a little way, the dog said, "I am tired and would like to go to sleep." "Well, do so," said the sparrow. "In the meanwhile, I will sit near on a bough." The dog laid himself in the road and fell fast asleep, and as he lay there, a wagoner came up with a wagon and 3 horses, laden with 2 casks of wine. The sparrow, seeing that he was not going to turn aside but kept in the beaten track, just where the dog lay, cried out, "Wagoner, take care, or you shall suffer for it." But the wagoner, muttering, "What harm can you do to me?" cracked his whip and drove his wagon over the dog, and he was crushed to death by the wheels. Then the sparrow cried, "Thou hast killed the dog, my brother, and it shall cost thee horses and cart." "Oh, horses and cart," said the wagoner. "What harm can you do to me, I should like to know," and drove on. The sparrow crept under the covering of the wagon and pecked at the bunghole of one of the casks until the cork came out, and all the wine ran out without the wagoner noticing. After a while, looking round, he saw that something dripped from the wagon, and on examining the casks, he found that one of them was empty, and he cried out, "I am a ruined man." "Not ruined enough yet," said the sparrow, and flying to one of the horses, he perched on his head and pecked at his eyes. When the wagoner saw that, he took out his axe to hit the sparrow, who at that moment flew aloft, and the wagoner, missing him, struck the horse on the head so that he fell down dead. "Oh, I am a ruined man," cried he. "Not ruined enough yet," said the sparrow, and as the wagoner drove on with 2 horses that were left, the sparrow crept again under the wagon covering and pecked the cork out of the second cask, so that all the wine leaked out. When the wagoner became aware of it, he cried out, "Oh, I am a ruined man!" But the sparrow answered, "Not ruined enough yet," and he perched on the second horse's head and began pecking at his eyes. Back the wagoner ran and raised his axe to strike, but the sparrow flying aloft, the stroke fell on the horse, and so that he was killed. "Oh, I am a ruined man," cried the wagoner. "Not ruined enough yet," said the sparrow, and perching on the third horse began pecking at his eyes. The wagoner struck out in his anger, and the sparrow, without taking aim and missing him, he laid his third horse dead. "Oh, I am a ruined man," he cried. "Not ruined enough yet," answered the sparrow, flying off. I will see to that at home." So the wagoner had to leave his wagon standing and went home full of rage. "Oh," said he to his wife, "what ill luck I have had. The wine is spilt, and the horses are all dead." "Oh, husband," answered she, "such a terrible bird has come to this house. He has brought with him all the birds of the air, and they are in the midst of our wheat, devouring it." And he looked, and there were thousands upon thousands of birds sitting on the ground, having eaten up all the wheat, and the sparrow in the midst, and the wagoner cried, "Oh, I am a ruined man." "Not ruined enough yet," answered the sparrow. "Wagoner, it shall cost thee thy life." Now the wagoner, having lost everything he possessed, went indoors and sat down angry and miserable behind the stove. The sparrow was perched outside on the window-sill and cried, "Wagoner, it shall cost thee thy life." Then the wagoner seized his axe and threw it at the sparrow, but it broke the window sash in 2 and did not touch the sparrow, who now hopped inside, perched on the stove, and cried, "Wagoner, it shall cost thee thy life." And he, mad and blind with rage, beat in the stove, and as the sparrow flew from one spot to another, hacked everything in pieces, furniture, looking-glasses, benches, tables, and the very walls of the house. Yet he did not touch the sparrow. At last he caught and held him in his hand. "Now," said his wife, "shall I not kill him?" "No," cried he, "that were too easy a death. I will swallow him." And as the bird was fluttering in the man's mouth, it stretched out its head, saying, "Wagoner, it shall cost thee thy life." But the wagoner reached the axe to his wife, saying, "Wife, strike me this bird dead." The wife struck, but missed her aim, and the blow fell on the wagoner's head, and he dropped down dead. But the sparrow flew over the hills and away. Next is called Fred and Kate. I'm not actually sure if we are going to finish this today, mostly because my lips are stupid dry. But we'll see. Fred and Kate. There was once a young husband and wife, and their names were Fred and Kate. One day, said Fred, I must now go to work in the fields, Kate, and when I come back, you must have on the table some roast meat to satisfy my hunger and some cool drink to quench my thirst. All right, Fred, answered Kate. Be off with you. I will see to it. When dinner time began to draw near, she took down a sausage from the chimney, put it in a frying pan with some butter, and stood it over the fire. The sausage began to frizzle and fry, and Kate stood holding the handle of the pan and fell into deep thought. At last she said to herself, while the sausage is cooking, I might as well be drawing the beer in the cellar. So she saw that the frying pan was standing firmly, and then took a can and went down into the cellar to draw the beer. Now, while Kate was watching the beer run into a can, a sudden thought came into her head. Hello, the dog is not fastened up. He may perhaps get at the sausage. And in a trice she was up the cellar steps, but already the dog had it in his mouth and was making off with it. Then Kate, with all haste, followed after him and chased him a good way into the fields, but the dog was quicker than Kate, and never letting slip the sausage, was soon at a great distance. Well, it can't be helped, said Kate, turning back, and as she had tired herself with running, she took her time about going home and walked slowly to cool herself. All this time the beer was running out of the cask, for Kate had not turned off the cap, and as the can was soon full, it began to run over on the cellar floor, and ran until the cask was empty. Kate stood on the steps and saw the misfortune. Dear me, she cried, what am I to do to prevent Fred from noticing it? She considered for a while and then remembered that there was remaining in the loft from their last fair time a sack of fine wheat flour. She determined to bring it down and strew it over the beer. To be sure, said she, those who know how to save have somewhat in time of necessity. And going up to the loft, she dragged the sack down and threw it right upon the full can of beer, so that Fred's drink ran about the cellar with the rest. It is all right, said Kate. Where some goes, the rest must follow, and she strewed the meal all over the cellar. When all was done, she was highly pleased and thought how clean and neat it looked. At dinner time, Fred came home. Now, wife, what have you got for me? Said he. Oh, Fred, answered she, I was going to cook a sausage for you, but while I was drawing the beer, the dog got it out of the pan, and while I was running after the dog, the beer all ran away. And as I was going to stop up the beer with the wheat meal, I knocked over the can, but it is all right now. The cellar is quite dry again. But Fred said, Oh, Kate, what have you been about, letting the sausage be carried off and the beer run out of the cask, and then to waste all our good meal into the bargain? Well, Fred, I did not know. You should have told me, said Kate. So the husband thought to himself, if my wife is like this, I must look after things a little better. Now he had saved a very pretty sum of money, and he changed it all to gold and said to Kate, Do you see these yellow counters? I am going to make a hole in the stable underneath the cow's manger and bury them. See that you do not meddle with them, or it will be the worse for you. And she said, Oh, no, Fred, I certainly won't. Now, one day when Fred was away, there came some peddlers to the village with earthen pots and basins to sell, and they asked the young wife if she had nothing to give in exchange for them. Oh, my good men, said Kate, I have no money to buy anything with, but if you had any use for yellow counters, I might do some business with you. Yellow counters? Why not? We might as well see them, said they. Then go into the stable and dig under the cow's manger, and you will find them, but I dare not go near the place. So the rogues went and dug, and found the gold accordingly, and they seized it quickly and ran off with it, leaving the pots and pans behind them in the house. Kate thought she must make use of her new possessions, so, as she had no need of them in the kitchen, she spread them out on the ground, and then struck them one after another for ornament on the fence which ran round the house. When Fred came home and saw the new decorations, he said, Kate, what have you been doing? I bought them every one, Fred, with those yellow counters that were buried under the manger, and I did not go there myself. The peddlers had to dig them up for themselves. Oh, wife, cried Fred, what have you done? They were not counters, but pure gold, and all our capital. You should not have done so. Well, Fred, I did not know. You should have told me that before, answered Kate. Then Kate stood a little while to consider, and at last she said, Listen, Fred, we may be able to get the gold back again. Let us run after the thieves. Very well, said Fred. We will try, only let us take some bread and cheese with us, that we may have something to eat on the way. All right, she answered. So they set out, and as Fred was a better walker than Kate, she was soon left behind. Burpee. All the better for me, said she, for when we turn back, I shall have so much less distance to go. And they came to a mountain where on both sides of the road there were deep cart runs. And Kate said to herself, How sad to see the poor earth torn and vexed and oppressed in this way. It will never be healed again in all its life. And with a compassionate heart, she took out her butter and smeared the cart ruts right and left, so that they might not be so cut by the wheels. And as she was stooping to perform this merciful act, a cheese fell out of her pocket and rolled down the mountain. And Kate said, I have walked over the ground once, and I'm not going to do it again, but another shall run after that cheese and bring it back. So saying, she took another cheese and rolled it after the first one, and as it did not seem to be coming back again, she sent a third racing after them, thinking, Perhaps they are waiting for company, and they are not used to traveling alone. But when they all three delayed coming, she said, I can't think what this means. Perhaps it is that the third one has lost his way, so I will send a fourth that he may call out to him as he goes by. But it went no better with the fourth than with the third, and Kate lost all patience and threw down the fifth and sixth, and that was all. A long while she stood and waited for them to come up, but as still they did not come, she said, Oh, it's like sending good money after bad. There is no getting you back again. If you suppose I am going to wait for you any longer, then you are very much mistaken. I shall go on my way, and you may overtake me. Your legs are younger than mine. Kate went on until she overtook Fred, who was standing still and waiting, as he wanted something to eat. Now be quick, he said, and hand over what you have brought. She handed him the dry bread. Now for the butter and cheese, said the man. Oh, Fred, said Kate, I anointed the cart roads with the butter, and the cheeses will soon be here. They are upon the road. One of them ran away, and I sent the others to fetch it back. Then said Fred, It was very wrong of you, Kate, to waste the butter and roll the cheeses down the hill. And Kate answered, Well then, you should have told me so. As they were eating the dry bread together, Fred said, Kate, did you lock up the house before leaving? No, Fred, you ought to have told me that before. Kate's a fucking idiot. And her husband answered, Well, you must go home at once and lock up the house before we get any further. And you might as well bring something more to eat with you, and I will wait for you here. So Kate went, and she thought to herself, As Fred wants something more to eat, and he does not care much about butter and cheese, I will bring some dried apples and a jug of vinegar back with me. Then she bolted the front door, but the back door she took off its hinges and lifted it on her shoulders, thinking that if she had the door all safe, no harm could come to the house. And she took her time on the way back and thought to herself, Fred will have so much the longer to rest. So she got back to him and called out, Fred, if the house door is safe, no harm can come to the house. Oh dear, cried he, what a prudent wife have I, to carry away the back door so that anyone may get in, and to bolt the front door. It is too late now to go home, but as you have brought the door so far, you may carry it on further. All right, I will carry the door, Fred, said she, but the dried apples and vinegar will be too heavy for me. I will hang them on the door and make it carry them. Now they went into the wood to look for the thieves, but they could not find them. When it grew dark, they got up into a tree to pass the night there. No sooner had they settled down when up came the peddlers, some of those fellows to carry away what should not go with them, and who find things before they are lost. They laid themselves down directly under the tree where Fred and Kate were, and they made a fire and began to divide their spoil. Then Fred got down on the further side of the tree and gathered together some stones, and then got up again, intending to stone the robbers to death with them. The stones, however, did not hit them, and they said, It will soon be morning. The wind is rising and shaking down the fir cones. Now all the time Kate had the door on her shoulder, and as it weighed upon her heavily, she thought it must be the dried apples, and she said, Fred, I must throw down the dried apples. No, Kate, not now, answered he. We might be discovered. Oh, dear Fred, but I must. They weigh me down so, said she. Well then, do it if you must, in the name of all that's tormenting, cried he, and down rolled the apples between the boughs, and the robbers cried, There are birds in this tree. After a while, as the door still weighed her down heavily, she said, Oh, Fred, I must pour away the vinegar. And he answered, No, Kate, you must not do that. We must be discovered. We might be discovered. Oh, dear me, Fred, but I must. It weighs me down so. Then do it if you must, in the name of all that's tormenting. And she poured out the vinegar so that the men were all besprinkled. And they said to one another, The morning dew is beginning to fall already. At last, Kate began to think that it must really be the door that weighed so heavily, and she said, Fred, I must throw down the door. And he answered, No, Kate, not now. We might be discovered. Oh, dear me, Fred, but I must. It weighs me down so. No, Kate, you must hold it fast. Oh, Fred, it's slipping. It's falling. Well then, let it fall in the name of torment, cried Fred in a passion. And so it fell with a great crash, and the thieves below cried, There is something wrong about this tree. And they got up in a great hurry and ran off, leaving their spoil behind them. And early in the morning, when Fred and Kate came down from the tree, they got all their gold again and carried it home. And when they reached their house again, Fred cried, Now, Kate, you must fall to and be very industrious and work hard. All right, Fred, I will go into the field and cut corn, said she. And when she came into the field, she said to herself, Shall I eat before I cut, or shall I sleep before I cut? Well, I will eat first. And so she ate, and after that she felt sleepy, and began to cut, and went on half asleep, cutting her own clothes, skirts, gown, and all. And when she at last woke up and found herself in rags, she said to herself, Is this really I or not? Oh dear, it is not I. And after a while, night came on, and Kate ran into the village and knocked at her husband's door, calling out, Fred! What is it? Said he. I want to know if Kate is at home, said she. Oh yes, he answered. She is lying here fast asleep. So she said to herself, All right then, I am certainly at home, and she ran on further. Soon she came upon some thieves who were looking about for something to steal, and she went up to them and offered to help them, and the thieves thought she knew of a good place and opportunity, and were glad of her offer. But Kate walked in front of the houses, calling out, Good people, what have you for us to steal? So the thieves thought to themselves, This will never do, and wished themselves quit of her. At last they said to her, "Just at the end of the village there are some turnips in the parson's field. Go and fetch us some." So Kate went into the field and began to pull some up, but very lazily, and never raised herself. Presently came by a man who saw her and thought she was some evil thing grubbing for turnips. So he ran quickly into the village and said to the parson, "Oh, parson, some evil creature is grubbing in your turnip field." "Oh dear," answered the parson, "I have a lame foot. I cannot go to drive it away." And the man at once offered to take him on his back, and he did so. Just as they reached the field, Kate got up and stood upright. "Oh, the devil!" cried the parson, and both took to their heels, and the parson was able, out of his great fear, to run faster with his lame foot than the man who had carried him on his back with both legs sound. That one's weird. What time are we at? Yeah, I think we're going to stop, and then we'll do like a quick 15-minute one tomorrow to finish it off, because I'm going somewhere tomorrow. So that is all for today. I will upload this on YouTube. Thank you so much for reading with me, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.